So check this out, people. I am in the Philippines. For those people who are back home in the US, sitting around at 40, 50 years old with nothing to do, I recommend that you take a chance and first of all, get your passport. Because most Americans don't even own a passport, which doesn't make sense because if you come to Southeast Asia or anywhere else in the world, you're going to find that the majority of locals outside of the US own a passport. And it doesn't make sense that Americans, at least 7 out of 10 Americans, don't own a passport. Now, I don't know why that is. My thinking is that the reason why most Americans don't own a passport is because they feel that they don't have to leave the US, right? And the reason why they feel they don't have to leave the US is because the US, as we know, is the greatest country in the world, right? So why leave, right? Why get a passport? Now, for those who believe that the US is the greatest country in the world, I get it because it is. But there are so many things to experience outside of the US that you're never going to experience in America, right? One of those things is the food, right? Foods that you're never going to experience back home in the US. A perfect example of how different food tastes here in the Philippines, right? Did you guys know that eggs don't have to be refrigerated? They don't. When you buy eggs here in the Philippines, you're going to find that they're going to be sitting outside in the sun for hours. You're going to be sitting on the shelves of the supermarket unrefrigerated. And boiled eggs here in the Philippines or in Southeast Asia do not have a smell. Unlike eggs back home in the US, when you boil them, you can't even open them up you can't break a boiled egg open without having to open the windows because it smells like funk. We all know what a boiled egg smells like back home in the US. But it's not like that. Eggs are not supposed to smell sulfuric, however you pronounce it, right? They're not supposed to smell that way. Also, you're going to find that the shell on eggs are really, really hard. And they're not that easy to break. Unlike the eggs in the US, which have a very soft shell. And if you're not careful, you can easily break an egg. And they're very watery. It wasn't like that when I was a boy. Eggs were a lot thicker, a lot richer. And when you eat an egg here in the Philippines, you get so full, especially a duck egg. If you have one duck egg, it is so rich and so heavy and so filling that you can skip a full meal after just having one freaking egg. And so there's so many things to experience here in the Philippines that you're never going to experience back home, right? Also, you keep hearing about how free the US is, how free America is, how there's a freedom of speech, freedom this, freedom that, as if though no other country has freedom. And that's a bunch of nonsense, right? It's easy for those who have never owned a passport and who've never left the US to listen to that rhetoric and believe and think that there isn't freedom outside of the US, because there is. And you will find that there is a lot more freedom here in the Philippines than there is back home in the US. Okay? You're going to find that out really fast because here the police don't police. They're not up your behind. They're not following you while you're driving. They're not following you around while you're walking. They're not asking you for your ID. And they're not bothering you. They're not harassing you. The police only show up if someone calls them. And usually if there's a conflict, you have to call or get in touch with the barangay captain, which is the chief person in charge of the community. You have to get in touch with him and give him a chance to see if he can resolve whatever issues he may have. And if he cannot, then he will contact the police. Now, if you want to see real freedom, come to the Philippines and you're going to understand the lack of freedom that we actually have back home in the US. Because one thing is the propaganda that you're being fed on television, and another thing is when you see real freedom for yourself. And the only way you're going to know you're free is when you're able to leave the cage that you've been sitting in for all your life, so you can see what is actually outside of that cage. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this story. I forgot the name of it, but it's about these people who live in a cage, right? And who are presented with a puppet show, right? On the walls, a shadow show, something like that, right? And they're constantly seeing this shadow show or puppet show on the cave walls, right? And they're being told that this is what life is like, right? And so they refuse to leave the cage or the cave because they don't believe that there's something better outside of the cave. So they spend the rest of their life, their childhood, from the time they're born up until the time they die, inside that cave. And finally, one day, someone has the guts to leave the cave. And when he leaves the cave, he sees all of this grass, he sees all of this. He breathes all of this beautiful air, he sees the sun shining, the trees, the flowers, all of this nature. And then he returns to the cave and he says to all those people, hey, listen, you're being lied to. You're being manipulated. You're being told that there's nothing better outside of this cave, and that if you leave this cave, you're not going to find anything. You need to get up, leave, and come with me so you can see what is out there besides what you're being shown on the cave walls, right? But nobody believes him. Nobody wants to listen. Nobody wants to hear what he has to say. And in the end, they're stuck in the cave, and this man is exploring what real life has to offer and what the world is really like outside of that cave. And that is what the US is. The US is a cave where you're being told that nothing is worth leaving that cave for. There's no reason for you to leave the US. The US is the richest country in the world. Go to Dubai and you tell me if the US is the richest country in the world. Go check out the airports in Taipei, in Kuwait, and in the rest of the world, so you can see whether or not the US truly is the richest country in the world, right? And so you're being told that you're free. You're being told that you're rich. But leave the US just for a week, help for 3 days, and come to Southeast Asia, and you tell me whether or not you're truly free. Come to the Philippines, see for yourself what real freedom is. See for yourself what the American dollar is worth here, which is worth 54 times what the American dollar is worth back home. Because the American dollar back home is not worth a bag of chips. And here you could buy 4 bags of chips with the American dollar, okay? Now, you have to excuse my voice, people, because unlike the US, the air is very clean. Here, you have to sacrifice one thing for another. The exhaust from the cars, from the buses, from the trucks, from the jeepneys, the tricycles, they don't regulate, they're not required to use catalytic converters, and so there's no regulation, and so people have to deal with the pollution. That's one of the setbacks about Southeast Asia, or at least the Philippines. I'm sure it's the same thing in China with all the industrial waste and pollution and so on and so on. So these are certain give and takes that you have to accept when you travel to countries like the Philippines. Because even though the Philippines has a lot of freedom, the dollar is worth a lot, it's still a third world country. But this third world country is growing, and it's growing fast. You just have to see how far it's developed in the small amount of time that I've been here. I've been traveling back and forth to the Philippines since 2017. And since 2017 to now, 2025, this place has done nothing but develop and grow, with their streets expanding, their railways, See, that's one of the give and takes. You got to deal with the air. But they are expanding. I'm hoping that with time, they'll start regulating the vehicles, the cars, the catalytic converters, and start making it so that the air is not as polluted, so that when you travel here, you're able to enjoy the air just like you enjoy it in the US. But again, this country is really growing, it's developing really fast, and you will enjoy it, I guarantee it. So come to the Philippines. For those who have never traveled outside of the US, get your passport, experience the world outside of the cave that you've lived in for all your life, and see what the world has to offer. Thanks for watching, people. Have a good day for those who are here in the Philippines, because right now it's about 4 in the afternoon. And for those back home in the US, have a good night.